At the risk of sounding incredibly California soft, which I have no reservations of who I am, I know that this is the case. Uh, it is very cold outside, and I typically do these videos, or I like to do them outside. I like to show you that I'm at spring training and how the sun is. No, there is no sun. Do you see this weather right here? Like, I was told that Arizona was hot and it was sunshine, and like for the first couple weeks of spring training, that was the case. But now, I feel like I'm in Daly City. Like, this is the least homesick that I've probably been the entire time that I've here, strictly because of the weather. Most of the times where like I wear a hoodie or a crew neck, it's kind of been like, yeah, I'll wear it, but it's a little hot outside. Nah, this has been out of necessity today. It's cold, and I'm hoping that tomorrow, especially considering we have a doubleheader between the regular game and the spring breakout game, hoping things are a little warmer, but that's neither here nor there. Let's get into some Giants baseball, beginning with Luis Matos today, going 2 for 3 at the plate. He had a 2-run homer. He drew his first walk of the spring. He was the headline, or the focus rather. Well, he was the headline of the story, but he was the focus of my story today as the Giants lost here to the Brewers 11-5. And Matos is firmly in the competition for that fourth outfield spot. In my estimation, I believe him to be the favorite, given some of the things that we'll touch on in a second. But over the course of this spring so far, he's hitting .364 with a .923 OPS. And when we had the opportunity to talk to Matos after his performance today, he was telling us how when he went to the Venezuelan Winter League, where he won Rookie of the Year, he had a very simple plan, which was to swing at good pitches. There were times last year where, despite some of his borderline elite bat-to-ball skills, he would get a little too aggressive with his discipline, and to kind of provide some numbers for you there. Over the first 2 years of Matos' major league career, he had an 85.5% contact rate, which last year, if you just looked at his entire season or career total and just put it into last year's leaderboard, he would have ranked tied for 15th. And because of that batted ball profile, or rather just his profile as a hitter, he's always had low whiffs, he's always had low strikeout rates, which are good things. These are things that you want out of a hitter. The problem with Matos' kind of aggressive approach has been the high chase, which can subsequently result in low walk rates. And that was the thing that he talked to us about today, which is he wanted to swing at good pitches. That was his mindset going into the Winter League. That was his mindset coming into camp. And today we kind of got an example of what that could be when he is swinging at good pitches. Obviously, he had the 2-run homer off of Nestor Cortez, but then we also drew his first walk of spring as well, laying off 4 bad pitches. And he was kind of self-aware when he was talking about the walks. He knows that he's never going to be a truly high walk guy, but if he can just get into a place where he's not swinging at everything, where he's swinging at the right types of pitches, that will put him in the best position possible to consistently be a solid hitter at the major league level. And we've talked about this with Jung Hoo Lee, how contact rates are one of those things that are really hard to fake. I believe that to be the case here. It's just going to be a matter of laying off maybe those borderline pitches and really zoning in those pitchers that he can do damage on, instead of just trying to make contact just because he can make contact. Going back to the fourth outfield component of this, that competition is going to come down to him and Grant McCray. Marco Luciano was technically part of that mix when spring training started, but when you consider the fact that he was converting from a middle infielder to a corner outfielder, had never played either of the corner outfield positions in a game over the course of spring, it made sense that he wasn't truly going to be part of this competition, and that really was backed up when he was part of the first wave of cuts along with Bryce Eldridge in early March, and that was kind of the point at which the competition for the fourth outfield spot began in earnest. I kind of give the nod to Matos at this point in time. I gave him the early nod when I did the projection last week, and that's due to a couple different factors. The main one being that he's played more games at the major league level. I think he's played 121 games compared to McCray's 37. But the other big element there is the complexion of San Francisco's bench as well as their starters. And when I'm talking about their starters, I mean Mike Yastrzemski in particular, because Matos performs well against lefties, struggles a bit against righties, while Yastrzemski is the opposite, performs well against right-handed pitching, but not so much against left-handed pitching. And on days where the opposing team is throwing out a lefty, that can be the day where Matos slides in as far as the starting right field job. A couple other things to get into from today's game. Jordan Hicks threw 2 2/3 innings, allowed 4 earned runs, all of which were on a grand slam by Christian Yelich. Had pitched 2 clean innings prior and then ran into a little bit of trouble when he allowed a leadoff walk. I believe it was a leadoff walk, and then 2 kind of just whatever singles. It kind of happened to him in his last outing. Gets into a 3-0 count with Yelich, throws a sinker 97 right down the middle, and Christian Yelich does what Christian Yelich does, deposit it over the center field fence. But when it comes to Hicks, the most interesting part of today wasn't his outing, but it was rather what he told us after his outing. Alex Pavlovich asked him about maintaining the weight that he put on coming into this spring and how he's going to maintain it over the course of an entire season. And Hicks actually told us that part of that was quitting nicotine. He hasn't done nicotine since last November. He believes it was one of those things that caused him to suppress his appetite. He hasn't drank in the last couple months, drank alcohol, of course, over the last couple months. And while he might have the occasional beer or 2 over just the course of a major league season, he doesn't see himself going back to nicotine in any meaningful way. Lou Trevino threw an inning and a third of scoreless ball today. He is now up to 6 1/3 scoreless innings this spring. Talked about him in his last video. He's someone that I can really see on this opening day roster. I had him on the roster projection that I did last week. If I was to do another one, I would have him in that mix as well. And the last thing to get into from today doesn't even come from this game, but rather the game that the Giants had over at Papago Park. Landon Roop got the start, and his line went as follows. 5 innings pitched, 1 earned run, no runs allowed, 1 walk, and 13 strikeouts. I'm going to repeat that again for you. 13 strikeouts. He struck out the first 9 batters that he faced. He threw 51 of his 66 pitches for strikes. And it is minor league competition. He's not facing the Jackson Churios and the Christian Yeliches of the world. Whoever he was facing today over at Papago Park was nowhere near that caliber. But that being said, for me personally, it does not matter what level unless it's like high schoolers, but it really doesn't matter who he's facing over at Papago Park. 9 strikeouts, regardless of who you face, is really difficult to do. It only takes one guy to put a ball in place to interrupt a streak of 9 consecutive strikeouts. So you can personally gauge however you want, whether like how much stock to put into this outing. It is difficult to, fully invest into that. But again, 13 strikeouts is 13 strikeouts. 9 strikeouts in a row is 9 strikeouts in a row. We've talked about the 5th spot in this rotation ad nauseum. And as things are trending, it's going to continue to be something that we talk about until they announce a 5th starter.